Hi, and welcome back to your IBS Answer Portal, Video A103, Part 2. Now you are going to find out what you've been dying to know. Why do I have irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease? The human body is very complex and very amazing. Yet, if we take the time to understand it, you will be able to function normally. It has to do with your immune system. This is going to answer your question why you got IBS and not the entire population has it. Those 70 million people, about almost 20% of the population, develops it because their immune system responded in excess compared to a normal person in responding to a pathogenic infection. That means a bacteria that causes disease. Now you have to remember your human gut has 10 trillion to 100 trillion bacteria. Under normal conditions, it's homeostatic, meaning these populations of commensal bacteria are all living together symbiotically with each other. Your immune system and your large proportion of this commensal population keep those pathogenic or disease-causing bacteria in check. And your small intestine functions normally. Your small intestine is composed of single cells that line your entire intestines. Their chief function is creation of your brush border, and your brush border of finger-like projections that emanate out from the surface of your small intestine. In there, it absorbs food and nutrients from the contents of your intestine. It also produces intestinal enzymes that aid in digesting and breaking down your foods. Now remember, why do you produce gas, bloating, cramping, loose stools, diarrhea? You know the symptoms. It is because the sugars, complex sugars, are not getting broken down in the small intestines. If they don't get broken down, and there's a presence of these trillions of bacteria, you are giving them a smorgasbord to go crazy. Pathogenic bacteria, disease-causing bacteria, multiply much more rapidly than regular bacteria. With the presence of all these unbroken down sugars, uncatabolized sugars, they have a food source that makes them grow wild. Under normal conditions, a normal person would not have the presence of those sugars because urine enzymes would have broken them down. When your food passed through from your stomach to your small intestines, all your stomach did was break it down into smaller and smaller packets of food, bathed it in certain gastric or stomach juices. But when it gets into the small intestine, that first section of your small intestines, your duodenum, all those enzymes start getting dumped right into the mix, and it prevents those bacteria from being able to feed on the sugars because those sugars are broken down into simple sugars. Well, you're asking, what are the sugars? You don't think of just one sugar in an existence. The bad sugars we're talking about are in garlic, peaches, cherries, avocados, pears, apples. Think about it. Why do some people get gassy on apples? Those sugars from those fruits that end up in your small intestine where you haven't produced the gas start fermenting. And just like I told you, baking bread or brewing beer, all that gas comes from organisms that expel the gas. Well, yeast does it for bread and for baking cakes, And in beer, the same thing occurs. That's how you get the gas and fermentation and the rising of the bread and yeast. Well, guess what? Your stomach's rising too. Those cramps and horrible pains are gas. There's nowhere for it to go. And that food is fermenting in your gut. I'm going to teach you how to fix that and prevent it from happening. But before we go, what occurred and what went wrong? The bacteria that grew wild in excess of normal population attacked the cells that line your small intestine. They're called enterocytes. And if a pathogenic bacteria attaches to that enterocyte cell, kills it, and that cell was producing intestinal enzymes, you now no longer produce it. And in turn, you produce the gas, bloating, cramping, because now the sugars are fermenting. And it exacerbates the situation. And it gets worse and worse and worse. Then when you get sick, you don't eat it, and you start to feel a little better. Well, you're on a roller coaster, and it keeps going over and over and over. And I'm going to explain to you why you particularly developed it in A104. I don't want this to be too long, but there's a treasure trove of information here. Your physician just doesn't have the time. And if you go to your doctor, he or she cannot sit here and tell you for an hour in an examining room. And chances are your doctor never even thought about it, because a pharmaceutical rep came in and said, use this drug to treat them. It'll control the gas. It'll control the inflammation. But it's not fixing what's wrong. And I'm going to teach you how to fix what's wrong. Hey, I spent over 3 years doing the research, and look, for the past 8.5 months, I'm free of symptoms. Guess what? You can cure yourself, and you will be free too. So I don't want it to be long. Look for video A104, and we're going to discuss why you particularly respond the way you do to create inflammatory bowel disease or irritable bowel syndrome. And you'll understand why you develop ulcerative colitis too. And towards the end of these videos, there's a very interesting thing for people who have celiac disease. So thanks for listening. Thanks for educating yourself. If you want to find out more information in the meantime, please check that book, IBS is BS. It has all the supportive documentation evidence, and it references all the researches I spent these 3 years reading about. See you soon. Bye.